Dominic built this cattle panel greenhouse in the fall of 2021, and we put our laying hens in here all winter. Welcome back to the greenhouse. It looks a little bit different, but we'll get into that. We are Dominic and Jenny, and we moved to this 26-acre property in Nova Scotia in August of 2020 with dreams of becoming more self-sufficient. Last year, we raised pigs, chickens, and goats for meat for the first time, and we had a semi-successful vegetable garden. This year, we're planning to really improve our vegetable gardening and add a lot more livestock to the homestead. This cattle panel greenhouse over winter was kind of an experiment in two parts. One was, could a cattle panel greenhouse hold up to the tough Canadian winter, especially when you live in a place that gets a lot of snow? We had over 400 centimeters of snow this winter alone. The second part was, can chickens living in a cattle panel greenhouse create a fertile compost all year long? So if the chickens are living in the greenhouse, could we continue to compost and create a nice fertile environment for our vegetable garden all winter long? So they don't know it yet, but the chickens are moving to their new home. Is it the rain or is it me? What are you guys afraid of? So if you've been following us for a little while, you'll know that these chickens have been living in this cattle panel greenhouse for about 5 months. They've been here all winter. I made another video where I showed you all of the features of the cattle panel greenhouse with the chickens inside of it, and you're welcome to check that out. But today, we are going to be moving these chickens back to their original home, which is this chicken coop right here. This is where they will normally be and where they will be while we are growing food in the cattle panel greenhouse, which hopefully is going to start really, really soon. Before we moved the chickens, we had some housekeeping to do. We needed to spruce up the coop for the ladies. So first things first, when you are living in a chicken coop, you want to have a nice dry bedding. The chickens were laying down here, and some of them still are. As you can see, there's somebody there, but also now they are laying in this bag of pine shavings. Can you get out? Let's go.
Thank you.
Got lots of eggs. Ah, hey, come on out.
Sorry, you're losing your nesting box there, guys.
So now we've got to take the dry shavings and put them in the bottom of the coop, which was one of my chores last year, and it feels pretty good to be out and doing one of my chores again, because I haven't been doing any.
She admitted it. She's not helping.
I'm the head chef. Their palatial estate is ready. As we dismantled the snowbird's home, it was time for reflection. How did the coop hold up over winter?
So, how did this place hold up for chickens for the winter? I would give it probably an A. Only thing keeping it from an A+ was with the egg situation, they didn't like laying the eggs like we had them, so that's something that we can improve for next year. We didn't have, I don't think, any signs of frostbite or anything, which was the big concern about how it gets wet inside the greenhouse. It was warm enough for them and they were comfortable and they looked good. The best, absolute best part of it is that they had a big area where they could scratch around. They had lots of room to move around without getting pecked on. So the chickens had tons of room, like I said, to move around and scratch, and it stayed pretty well dry in here for the most part. Whenever it got wet, I could just throw more leaves and they'd soak up the water pretty good, or we started using the wood shavings a little bit too. Their manure mostly is right here. A lot of it's right here, where it piled up over the winter on the roosting overnight. So you can see that's a good bit of manure there, but it's already starting to break down. There's lots of chips mixed in with it because I'd walk by and throw a few handfuls of shavings there every morning or every other morning. So awesome. I think it's going to be really good compost for the garden for the summer. We're in April now. We won't be planting much until end of May. It's been in here. Most of the manure is obviously older. Some of it's fresh from this, past little while. But I'm going to fill it with water and hot compost it, and it's going to be ready to rock for the summer garden, I think.
Another thing that I noticed, and we both talked about it, but last year we had a point where the eggs were a bit paler and like they weren't getting as many eggs a day. We did have a short period where we're not getting that many eggs, but for the most part, I think because they've had more access to sunlight rather than just that tiny little window, that the eggs have been a nice dark yellow and they've been producing a lot of eggs for us almost the whole winter.
Yep. And we've had the advantage too of being in here, when we have our food scraps, we don't toss them out into a frozen compost pile, just throw them on top. Like last year, we come out and we just throw them here. You can see like there's a bit of paper towel here and a little bit of eggshell, but I mean, we throw bread, we throw bits of meat, we throw everything in here, and it's just gone, right? So it's being eaten by the chickens or broken down really fast because they're scratching through it all the time. So it's been great in terms of that, and that our food scraps are still being useful. You know, we couldn't really throw them in the little coop last winter because it's not enough space and you wouldn't want the rotten stuff to get in there. So it's been great for that.
We got hit hard this winter. We had over 400 centimeters of snow. It became clear early on that there would be structural issues with the shape of the cattle panel greenhouse. Dominic would have to install a ridge beam.
Trying to pop back up.
Oh, look at that! No way! Oh, I'm so glad I came back over. Look at that!
Crazy. Oh, that'll save me a lot of work.
Yeah.
We got to get that bridge pole in before the next storm.
Yeah, for sure.
Bridge pole. I'd like to know what that 2x4 is made of. So the ridge beam or whatever, this thing I just slapped together. One other benefit it provided for the chickens, which I'll definitely do next year and I'll do a better job, is it provided a nice roost for them in the daytime. If it is wet, they hung out on the roost a little bit. So that turned out to be a good thing. So next year when I make a better one, I'll design it so that maybe I'll put some round wood in between them too for the chickens to perch on a little better. And maybe then I could take out these kind of roosts. I could integrate the ridge beam into the roosting system and not have to drive these stakes, and I think that'd be a better system. The last thing is having the corn bucket and the feed bucket out here was great because it just saves time. Little bits of time saving adds up a lot over time, so instead of having to go into the shed every morning and fill up 2 scoops and bring them down and dump them out and then bring the scoops back and put them back, it was way easier to just have the 2 buckets in here, which is not possible with the little coop because it's just, there's no room to store anything in there. So the other negative, I forgot there is one more negative of having the chickens in here, is that they do peck at the corners. As you can see, there's a piece of foam right here on the ground from them pecking at us and ripping it apart. I've been stuffing in feed bags, but they've been tugging on those a little bit too, as you can see over in that corner. So once I get the chickens out of here, I'm going to have to, I think I can still use feed bags as the solution. Someone mentioned using hoses as well. That's a possibility. But I'm going to have to fix that into something more durable for next year. So if you're planning to keep chickens in your cattle panel greenhouse, I would recommend not using foam for the corners, at least down low or anywhere that the chickens are going to be able to reach. And they can jump up and peck higher than you might believe. So yeah, just that was the only other negative that I can think of offhand.
Now that the threat of snow was over, it was time to dismantle the ridge beam.
Look how deep the bedding got. I'm not channeling my inner Joey Lawrence here with these pants. It's just my other work pants are all dirty or wet, hanging up.
They're broken.
So please ignore my exposed kneecaps. Izzy! I can understand it being hard to screw in, but why is it so hard to get out? Alright, so I'm going to get the poles down now. The string I put up because I wanted the poles to stay perfectly on a wire, and it worked the charm. It was great. It doesn't look the best obviously, but it worked awesome. Just the old baling twine from hay that I undid last year. And it also had the added effect that I could take off all the supports on the posts and they just hang here, so now I can just cut them down at the end. A couple of screws, because of the way she bent to the side that day, if you remember. Screws got bent and they're cracking, so they won't all come out for me. So this is the piece of 2x4 from hell, if you remember that. It was a real job to drill into. So
Chicken poop on the floor.
yeah, for sure.
Okay. We're without the ridge beams again. It feels like the space is already opening up, getting ready for tomato plants. Hasn't collapsed. That's good. So next job is to take out the nesting boxes so we can move them back over to their coop. You can see that anything that wasn't like on the floor where the chickens were scratching and turning it over didn't break up and break down. And so we've got like whole leaves in the bottom of this and underneath it because they were not composting. But you can tell the difference between...
shows what a job the chickens do.
Yeah, you can see the job that they did in the actual floor.
You can see the layer of bedding now that we've had. So this was the 2x10. So we look like we got about good 8 inches of bedding. And at the bottom here, like I said, there's worms crawling around and stuff. So I've got a good feeling about all of this. And I don't know, to me, I don't smell it.
No.
You know, for a place that's full of chicken crap, it doesn't have very, like you can put it up to your...
Last winter, like I said earlier, one of my jobs is to clean up the coop, and so last winter I was going out and cleaning it out over and over again, putting the compost on top of the compost piles, all of the shavings and all that stuff. But this winter I didn't have to do any of that. The chickens just pooped in here, and this is where it stayed. They scratched it all up, they did it all themselves, so it was not a job at all. It made a lot of the things that we did easier, especially because this year we had a lot more snow than we had last year. So Dominic used to be shoveling out paths to get to the coop so we could clean it, and shoveling paths to get to the compost pile and everywhere. Yeah. So we didn't have to do that this year because the chickens were right here.
The snow got about halfway up the Dutch door there. But you just walk out and you slide in and do what you got to do in here and then carry on.
Yeah, it was great. Goodness.
If you're hungry, you're going to have to come with me. Perfect.
Nice.
Just right.
Perfect.
Alright, we don't need 3 nesting boxes. They'll only use 1 anyway, but I'll put in 2.
Once the coop was clear, it was time to look for signs of fertility. We look for bugs, worms, and decomposition to assess the success of the chickens residing in a cattle panel greenhouse over winter.
No rush. Oh, I think the big giant worm just got covered up with that.
Oh, I see. Right there.
Oh, little ones or big ones?
Little ones.
Alright, I want to get all the material out of this. That's all good material. They hung out around here in nice bits, so there should be lots of manure in here. I don't want to lose any. There's poop cakes here. These gloves are going to have to be retired after today. This was one of the parts of the compost bay, so I'm just going to throw it out in the rain for now and let it wash off like we did with the perch and stuff. And then I'll hook it back onto the compost. So let's see how it looks down here. Oh, that's the earth. Whoops. So I guess underneath the pallet, obviously we didn't get too much deep bedding. We're down to the dirt there, but let's get into some of this. There you go. Looks pretty composted, not bad.
So if you're new here, our experiment over the winter was we built this cattle panel. When I say we, I mean Dominic. Dominic built this cattle panel greenhouse, and we had the chickens living in it all winter. And the idea was that the chicken manure would come in here, it would compost, we would put all of our food scraps in here. Dominic put bags and bags of leaves in here to compost, and they would scratch everything and poop it with their very nitrogen-rich manure. And at the end of the winter, we should have a very nice fertile ground for our tomatoes and our peppers and all the things that we're going to grow here in the greenhouse. So Dominic is now turning over the ground in hopes to see some bugs and some signs that everything has composted, which it seems like it is, but that's what he's doing now.
You do get a little bit of that smell, I'm noticing. Do you notice it?
Oh, the ammonia.
A little bit anaerobic.
Yeah. I bet that was because there was just so much.
But as you saw earlier, everywhere else I could hold it right up to my nose and eat all small things. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, and we're gonna.
This is good stuff. I'm gonna stop messing with this right now, so that when I pile up the other stuff, I'll be able to shovel this in easily. There is obviously chicken poop scattered through everything because they're hanging out in here all winter. But I'm gonna scrape the barrels. I'm gonna save this poopy section, throw it right in the middle once I get everything here kind of cleaned out.
With signs of fertility confirmed, it was time to rake up the floor, pile it into a big pile, and allow the compost to cure a little bit more until we're ready to put it in our vegetable garden.
So if you're wondering how dry it stayed in here, I just dumped the whole thing with like a lot of water on this, but we'll just pour some more in and show you. Like, I don't know how much you'd have to have for it to absorb all of it, or to just get standing water there.
Gone.
Soaks right in, easy peasy.
They are ready to go into their coop, so we're gonna get them out of here and we're gonna close the doors, and hopefully they will go back into where they belong now. Chickens are like creatures of habits, and I don't think they really like too much when you change stuff up on them, but they'll figure it out. They'll be fine. So I guess we're going to transport them one by one into the coop. When you catch a chicken, you gotta have your hand on top of their wings and your hands underneath them to keep them under control. Okay, here it is. The greenhouse. Looks nice. What do you think?
Wow. Very excited about the compost.
I'm very excited about the plants that we're gonna have in here. So it's gonna be awesome.
Hope so. Successful experiment.
Yes, great success. They're irritated with us. They're not very happy, but they're in there, so it's good. And that is a wrap on the cattle panel greenhouse. So one thing that we would change next year is we are going to make sure that we actually keep the sides clear of snow. The big thing about the Canadian winter is that we have got a lot of snow, specifically here, not just the Canadian winter, because even if you go down the road, they have less snow. So our particular property gets a lot of snow, but we're going to keep the sides clear so it doesn't bow in. And we're gonna have the ridge beam so it doesn't collapse on top, and that should settle all of our problems with it, really. The chickens were happy, they were healthy, they didn't have frostbite, they had eggs laying the whole year long, and now we have this beautiful compost pile. It has been here for 5 days, and look how hot it is. So some people were a little bit concerned that we were going to make sure that it composted before we put vegetables in here, because we don't want chicken poop contacting our vegetables that we're going to eat. And yes, we're making sure that it composts for several weeks. It is nice and hot. It should be good to go, and then it's going to go into the garden and help grow our vegetables. So I love that big cycle of we put our food scraps in here, we put our chickens in here, and now we're going to use this to grow our vegetables again. It is so satisfying when those things come full circle. And that is pretty much it. That is a wrap on the cattle panel greenhouse for having the chickens living in it in winter, and now we're moving on into spring. I don't think that Dominic or I have been more excited for spring in our entire lives. I know that last year we were every time we got livestock, we were very last minute about it. We have ordered every single livestock that we're getting already. And we'll share with you as we go some different things this year. So we're very, very excited about it. And it is feeling a lot like spring today. The snow is melting very rapidly, and we're getting ready to celebrate the long weekend with our family coming over from Newfoundland. So we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for following along, and have an awesome week. Bye, take care. You're not allowed in here. Go on, bye.